I would say the most difficult thing I believe that entrepreneurs have to deal with is patience and trusting the process. And because we don't tend to trust the process, we want to write the process. If your business is going to be successful, or if it's not going to be successful, that's okay because you will be able to build something else. But in any case, the process will tell you.
Hey everyone, it's Angela Mashuli, the host of the Good Enough Mompreneur Podcast. I thank you so much for joining me this week for this episode. Okay, I say this every week. I love everyone who I get to interview. I find it so fascinating to hear everybody's stories and just really get to connect and learn about other people's entrepreneurial journeys or inspirational stories. I just really love that aspect of podcasting. But this interview was just so surprising as I was listening back to it, just how much really great information that Rym Selmi, who is the CEO of Miiro, really shares with me and you as a listener that I think you could learn from. And I really wanted to do this interview because I think everybody needs to prioritize our health, and it's probably one of the things that we take for granted the most. I think we all kind of learned that through COVID. Not only should we try to live ours, not take that for granted, but just how fleeting our health can be. And I'm not preaching to anybody in this podcast interview, eat and do what you would like. But I think that if you're not feeling well or you want to make some changes, just look for sources of information and different foods or different exercise options to help you get where you want to be. I think other than Rym's entrepreneurial journey, which is inspiring by itself, there's also this really great message about eating healthier and listening to your body. And as a mom, there's so much that you have to do to help take care of everybody else, and you can't help everybody else when your cup yourself is empty. But also, one thing we kind of talk about too in this interview is that what you eat and how you're feeling and how that food makes you feel can oftentimes be directly related to your mental health. And running a business and being a mother is physically tiring, but it can also be very much mentally tiring. So I hope you find some inspiration and in this interview. And if you're feeling any of those nudges to make a change in your life about how you take care of yourself, maybe this interview will be that little bit of inspiration to help you make some of those changes. Without further ado, here is my interview with the lovely Rym Selmi, CEO of Miiro. Okay, I'm so excited today for my conversation with Rym Selmi, who has a really interesting company that I think not only do you have a journey as a mompreneur, but you have some really interesting and important insights that as business owners and moms, we need to keep in mind how to do all the things that we need to do to take care of our family and take care of ourselves and run our businesses we're often running on empty and not doing what we need to do. So I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today, Rym.
Hi, thank you
Welcome.
very much. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you for spending your time with me today. And why don't you tell my audience a little about you and your business?
Yeah, sure. So I was born and raised in France, in the south of France, with a strong. My mom has a strong culinary background, so it was a lot of like Mediterranean food and flavors, and then in my early 20s, I decided to like travel and see the world. Um, and something that happened was I was working like a crazy, like a job that was really hectic, and that exhausted me. So I quitted my job, and I went into like a plant-based journey. I mean, it was started like as a dairy-free challenge, and then a plant-based challenge, and I really, really liked the results. So I decided to keep going. And I created my first company there too, because I couldn't find any plant-based alternatives to like vegan magnums. So I know that magnums are not like Magnum ice cream is not like as big as it is in Europe here in the US. But at the time, like veganism or plant-based diets were not like mainstream. So long story short, I created my own initially just for me. I had such an amazing feedback, and I started like research and development for 2 years and a half, and then we launched. So, and then after launching, after all this work, several months later, I had to move to the US for like just like family reasons, to get closer to my family. And then I get pregnant, developed gestational diabetes, and this is where I started to think about like sugar, how sugar can be bad for you, the kind of consequences, and it just ruined my pregnancy. And this is where I started to do some research about like sugar and health. And now I'm on my second entrepreneurial journey with like a range of chocolate and baking goodies that are low in sugar and plant-based.
Oh, that's so interesting. So I really love how, and I've heard this story before, how so many mompreneurs, like what happened to them when they were pregnant, or what happened to them, shortly after having their children, just really changed their lives to inspire them to start their business. I mean, that's just so how did you get to the point where you're like, I need this plant-based food? Like, how is it that what were your food habits before then? Was it just something that you were trying to feel better?
So like I was born in the south of France, so Mediterranean like kitchen. And it's very heavy in cheese, very heavy in like eggs, like animal products. So it's a lot of inspiration from North Africa, from Italy, from Spain, from Greece, and it's almost like a melting pot of flavors in your kitchen. And so, but it's very strong, like in like I would say eggs and cheese, and even meats and fish. So, but the thing is, when I started like my journey, like in my job, like my job in my 20s, I was very much exhausted because I was doing long hours. So I relied primarily on sugar, coffee, but also on quick fixes. So like, for example, I've never been like a big meat eater, but if I didn't have time, like putting the steak to cook, it takes like 5 minutes, 10 max, and there is no preparation. So it's just so easy. And this really like it just killed my body. It just killed my like my mental health, and also the fact that I was constantly like working and doing long hours. So I didn't have any proper fuel for my body. So so that's really what happened. And when I quitted my job, I just felt miserable, exhausted. My sleep was not like, I felt that even if I slept like 9 hours, I would still feel exhausted in the morning. And actually I learned later it was because of digestion, and digesting like an animal product takes a bit longer than some fruits and veg or plant-based food, more generally speaking, like beans. And so I started with a dairy-free challenge, and I didn't find it very difficult. So I decided to push it to a plant-based challenge. And this is where I saw so much improvements in my life, and even to a point where like it actually helped with my mental health, because I was subject to burnouts. So it helped a lot.
Right. You know, I think that that's a really important lesson, that when you're feeling like that, to listen to your body and what it's telling you. And, you know, changing your diet is such a big thing that I think a lot of us are resistant to. Like, we have those things that we really love, but usually we don't make a change until like we just cannot continue in that same situation, and we know we have to make a change. And I think that, you know, so many people are feeling burnout and tired and exhausted for so many reasons. Do you have any like suggestion for somebody who might approach changing their diet? How to start doing it like in little steps, as opposed to like maybe changing everything in their diet to try to kind of figure out what might be causing them issues?
Yes, I think so. I think there are different solutions to different problems.
Right.
So when you really don't know what to do, there's always an elimination diet where you know you remove like all the allergens and a lot of food groups that you reintegrate like over like weeks. And I know that it has helped a lot of people that I know or that I've met. And it's not something I have done particularly like personally, so I can't recommend it. But I've heard really positive stuff about it. In my opinion, I knew, like, I think you know somehow, you know what you're missing, because your body will crave what you're missing. So like you will crave a smoothie, for example, if you require some nutrients, you will crave like some stuff. And sometimes when you even eat too much sugar, and even if you have a sweet tooth, your body will say, I don't feel like it today. And so you, like, if you're really in tune, you'll know. But I would say in my case, I knew that I critically needed nutrients. Like, like fruits and veg, I didn't have to, because you need to prepare it. Like, you know, veg are like, you have to cook your veggies. You can't just use like steam your veggies and eat them like this. Like you have to cook them, to put some spice, to put some, or a sauce or something that really will boost the profile, like the taste profile of your veggies, because otherwise it's unpalatable, let's be honest. But so there's a bit of like, I think like a bit of meal prep helps on some days to stay on track. And also like you know, for me, smoothies are saviors, because it enables me to have like this portion of veggies when I don't have time to cook veggies at home. So yeah, and then it's just like finding tricks to add those nutrients to your plate in a convenient manner. Like,
yeah, I think that that's really, and that's funny because I have one daughter who loves salads. Like if I just gave her a garden of fruits and vegetables, she could just eat them forever. But then I have another daughter who's not so much that way, but she consistently craves smoothies. and she likes to put different things in them. So that's really interesting. I bet, it's very much like you said, that if you start to listen to yourself, stay in tune, listen to what your body is telling you. Yeah, I just find this topic so interesting because it's something I think about myself too, just living healthier, because when you're a business owner, there's so much more you want to accomplish. And, we're taking care of our families and our businesses and everything else. If there was one thing that we should stop doing in our diet, what do you think that is?
I think buying like meals from outside that are like frozen meals.
I mean, it sounds like you have like experience living outside of the US. Do you think that is a particular problem in the United States?
I think, to be honest, I mean, the United States have a lot of problems when it comes to food. No,
Yeah.
I mean, like honestly, like the food system is totally broken. And
that's interesting. Mm-hmm.
And I think just the fact that brands like mine have to put a non-GMO stamp, to me, it's crazy. Because there were studies actually that showed there was a correlation between like people who eat like frequently GMO food and people who have cancers. So there is a correlation. And to me, when you sell or you buy, depending on the side you're in, products that contain GMO, I mean, it's no longer food, right? It's just like science, technology. And it's the same thing. So now what I'm seeing, like with vegan meat, for example, people are crazy about vegan meats just because it's more sustainable and everything, but it's not. And it comes from someone who follows a plant-based diet, who no longer eat meats. It's healthier, I believe. If we just talk about health, I'm not talking about like ethics. I'm not talking about animal welfare or sustainability, but if we just focus on health, I think that buying some like meat that are of very good quality is actually healthier than buying some vegan meat, because vegan meat is like, you can't read and pronounce the ingredients. I mean, it's just, it doesn't make any sense to sell those kind of things. I think they are solving an issue like on the sustainable side, and what they are doing is just amazing, because of like planet Earth and because of animals. But on the health aspect, so for human beings and their health, there is so much to do to improve, just because, I mean, it's like ingredients you've never heard of, or you can't even read. So I think that the US system is like in the US, like some companies are so much into research and in advance for so many things. When it comes to food, there's always tech involved, that America has lost. I don't know. I would say it's very almost rare to find like people eating consistently healthy, fresh food. And that put like some prepared food, cooked food on their table like every single day. And I think also what surprised me is the fact that people don't gather around the table. They eat in front of TV. So eating is just like a necessity to survive. But while in Europe you see, and especially France, you see like eating as the opportunity to gather, to share your day, to plan your weekend with your loved ones. And meals generally last quite some time, just because there is this gathering. Like, it's not food that is really important. It's just like the fact that you group people around the table, and it's the opportunity to share and to talk. That was what surprised me the most here in the US.
Mm. And, it's something that in our family, we find very important to make sure that we sit down together to
Yeah.
eat and to do that, because that's what we did. We don't kind of like let the schedule take over our lives, that we just think it's okay if we don't eat together. And not every night do we do that, but we do purposely make time. So I think that you're very right about that, in that we do need to probably stop trusting everybody else about like what's good for us, and really consider what we're putting in our bodies and how it's making us feel. So,
Yes. And I know it's time consuming. I mean, there is no
yeah.
shortcut, but I guess that the shortcut I figured out is, and it's not really a shortcut, is
Mm-hmm.
first of all, like meal prep on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Like this
Right.
helps. It just like makes everything quicker during the week. And the
Mm-hmm.
second thing I would say is finding 10-15 recipes that takes less than 15 minutes and that are really delicious and nutritious.
Mm-hmm.
And let's assume you find 15 and
Mm-hmm.
it can take time. Then it's okay if twice a month you eat the same thing, right?
Right.
So let's assume that you find like an amazing noodle recipe,
Mm-hmm.
especially noodles. It's
Mm.
very quick to prepare. So
Mm-hmm.
you can eat it on the 1st of September, and then you can eat it on the 15th of September.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. And then it's a no-brainer. Like you know
Right.
exactly what goes into like your noodles. It's healthy, it's fresh. Like the grocery shopping list is easy
Mm-hmm.
to prepare because every other week, so every 2 weeks, it's the same.
Mm-hmm.
So these are my shortcuts because I don't have any superpowers. I do very long hours. I
Right.
have a 3-year-old. And my husband
Oh,
is very busy too. So that's
right.
the only way. And I try to skip that. I try to, I mean, I've tried a lot of things and I came to realize that there is no magic wand. It's just
Mm.
if you don't eat properly, you will burn
Mm-hmm.
out.
Yeah, and I think too, something that in most families, as moms, we're looked at to coordinate all of this.
Yeah.
But too, like starting your children early and kind of training them. That's like when I gave up soda, is when my oldest daughter was just beginning to walk around and saw me drinking like 6 cans of soda a day. And she was like, "What's that?" And I was like, "Oh no, you don't need to
Yeah.
drink this." It was actually one of the best things that I ever did, was to give that up. But yeah, I think for me, it's just kind of something you have to accept or try to get help from, your spouse, or a like there are a lot of meal kits now too that you can
Yes.
order to
Yes.
really help with like the recipes and getting fresher food and that kind of thing. We have actually done that when it was really busy and we needed to be able to stop eating out so much, not only for the cost, but it was just really unhealthy. um, but one thing that I find really interesting is, on your journey, you love chocolate, right?
Yes. Yes,
So
yes. It's my guilty
you
pleasure. Yes.
so you needed your chocolate, and you couldn't find a good substitute. Is that right? So tell me
Yes.
about your journey on like developing this amazing chocolate, which now I have to try. I'm like so intrigued.
Yes, of course. So, okay. So basically, I developed gestational diabetes on the third term,
Mm.
so
Oh,
third
wow.
trimester,
Hmm.
and it just ruined the last part of my pregnancy because I have a
Hmm.
sweet tooth and I was working like still long hours, meaning
Hmm.
that when you work you tend to snack
Mm.
and most snacks are sugary snacks, right? Like
Hmm.
sweet snacks. And and I had to control my cravings being
Hmm.
pregnant and cut this snacking habit that I had while I was pregnant. I mean, it's just like, it was too much for me. And I'm the kind of person who eats chocolate very often just because I love it and I don't want to deprive myself. So what I did, like I discussed with my doctor and they were like, but don't worry, there are like low sugar alternatives. And I said, okay, that's amazing. I didn't realize that. So I tried every low sugar chocolate alternatives I could find. And every single time I was disappointed because there was either an aftertaste or the texture, the mouthfeel wasn't there, the experience, or it wasn't just indulgent, like it was dark chocolate. With like, instead of cane sugar, there would be like some sweeteners.
The sugar alcohols.
With dark chocolate. So but that's actually, you're saying something very interesting about the sugar alcohols. I'll get back to it. So yeah, and there was a problem with the ingredient list as well. So I thought it lacked so much indulgence. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to, maybe there's an idea here. I'm just going to test something, and that's what I did. So so then I started like the research and development phase, and I wanted to build something that had no aftertaste. That was super important to me. And to do that, you have to go back to what is a sweetener. And we decided to go, so we were wondering why, because erythritol, we decided to put erythritol in our products because erythritol has so much amazing properties in when you add it to like as a sweetener. And for example, it gives, like, in terms of mouthfeel, texture, it gives like something very similar to a conventional chocolate bar that has sugar. And actually we saw that a few people like you are like, no sugar alcohol, and we started to do some research, and we found out that there was erythritol and the rest, and that even though, like, the thing is, you could also boost the profile of your sweetener if you ferment it. So in our case, we decided to ferment our erythritol, and we arrived to a point where, so we also have like some stevia and and erythritol, and we fermented it, and the result was just amazing. So it really helps with digestion, and some people don't digest it very well, but it just like removes this digesting issue that some people have when you ferment it. So we decided to go for stevia and erythritol.
Wow. So it sounds like now you've really helped yourself stand out in a market that I think a lot of people might consider crowded, especially, it seems like there is a lot of more attempts, at least, whether they're really healthy or not. I'm sure is debatable. But how is it that you found a way to stand out in a crowded marketplace like the food industry?
I think you have to try everything that is out there. And I think you have to stand out on everything. So it starts with your product, of course. So the reproach that some people are doing with, like, a lot of people would love to have, like, to switch to a low sugar alternative, but they are just concerned of the aftertaste, for example. So we thought, okay, let's deal with that. And then there is the mouthfeel as, I mean, you need to address every single pain point. And then there's the packaging. We wanted to create something quite unique and that really supported our philosophy of, like, some chocolate and baking goodies for adults that just brings you back to childhood. So it's just like the way it's that was the idea behind the packaging, basically. So what we did, we just were very clear on what were the pain points of our of customers that could basically our competitors' customers. And for that, there is no shortcut. You go on their website, you do some research, you look at people's reviews, and this is where you'll see how you can improve their products, in addition to your own feedback. So that's what we've done.
Yeah. And I think, going down that road of assessing the situation and then finding your unique take on a product, no matter how crowded the marketplace is, can just really help you stand out. And, it seems like that's very much what you've done is, you've taken a unique approach to finding a solution to a problem, to eat food that's has less sugar in it and all of those things. So that's really quite an accomplishment. And so I would love to talk about like what do you feel like your biggest accomplishment is since you started your business?
I think the biggest accomplishment was to be very close to our customers. And every time they have a feedback, we try to do some research and see if it's the feedback of, if like it's the feedback of one single person or if it would resonate with more people. And we try to improve constantly our products, like all the recipes we have, even if I'm super proud of them and they are working very well right now. I will never say, okay, it's our final formulation or our final recipe. It will always be work in progress. There's always something you can improve. So I think it's been our greatest accomplishment because they're the theory. Like a lot of companies will say, yeah, we listen, like you asked and we listened. But while in theory, it's just, in practice, they didn't necessarily listen to their customers. It was just like an idea they had, they actioned. So listening to your customers is always like to keep improving your current products rather than just being focused on innovating and bringing new products. And that's something that we see very often because a lot of companies are really focused on bringing in new products rather than improving the current lines. And that's what, and we try to do both, which we really try to do both.
Yeah, that is, I think, a really defining moment for any business is where you actually are taking that action. You can hear a lot of feedback, but whether you have the humility and humble yourself to constantly be working to be better and realize you're always going to be a work in progress, I think that's just what really defines a great business owner and a business that's going to have longevity. That's great. And not every business owner has that philosophy. So I think that is quite an accomplishment too, that a lot of us could learn from, because I think when you're just starting a business or on the outside, you think it's like something you arrive at, but you're constantly working at it, right?
Yeah. It never stops.
No, but not that should deter you either, because my next question was going to be like, your website is beautiful, your social media is beautiful and all well and cohesive together, but it's been a long road for you to get where you are now. The food industry there's a lot of research and development, testing and formulating and packaging, and you've got to move a lot of different pieces and parts. So that can be overwhelming and daunting to anybody who wants to start a business, but especially a mom who's juggling a family. And so can you talk about your journey in starting your business and what you went through and some of the fears you had and how you overcame those?
So first of all, to give you a bit of context, I never thought one day I would become an entrepreneur.
Oh.
That's the first thing. So I was scared to death, and it just happened because I was creating a product for myself. I mean, it wasn't a product, it was a recipe. Like it was something I would do for myself at home. And then it was the fact that I realized that if I had this need, then maybe other people would have like this need for like vegan Magnum style of ice creams, because this is when I started to become an entrepreneur. I think for me, the road was long. It has never, ever been easy. And every single thing, like I get it with my sweat and blood, like,
yeah,
especially food industry where, you know, you have the General Mills of this world, you have the Hershey's of this world that are very, very present and anchored. And even if they put disgusting like ingredients in the on the label, they still have a very strong like presence. And I think like some stuff happened to us like in the UK where one day there was a competitor who put some milk in our products, and our products were totally dairy free, so it was routinely checked, like crazy things. And they went to the authorities and they said there was dairy. So we had to prove like that there was no dairy. So we managed to prove it.
Wow.
And at the end, they owed us like a ton of money for doing that and lying and doing some bad publicity. But these, like, it took everything from me, like my energy, my joy. It's a very, very difficult, you know. And you have to withdraw your products from the market like temporarily until they do their investigation. And it costs a ton of money. And you have to explain to your investors who've invested in your company. And it's very, very, very hard. So this is just an example of the kind of shit that happened to us in the past. So I think, so I think that, of course, you've got to be prepared. There's no one that will be easy on you, and they don't have to. But I think you need to be prepared to before creating a business, unless you just want to have like a lifestyle business, something that just like gives you a salary at the end of the month and covers your bills. And then like you do a 9 to 5 kind of small business, and that's actually perfect, right? Because it fits so well with your life. You don't have to do any sacrifices. But if you want to try to build like a brand that it goes like beyond like a 9 to 5 lifestyle kind of job, then you can be sure there will be a lot of like, there will be jealousy, there will be competition, there will be a lot of work, a lot of sacrifices, some evenings where you're working while your friends and families are outside having fun, and there's no, unfortunately, there's no solution to that. So it's you have to be prepared for that.
So what helped you get through that time and all of the obstacles? Like, what did you keep in your mind that, you know, just kept you going? Because I think a lot of people would have just used it as an excuse to give up, or
well, okay, that's the thing. When you have a mission rather than just a business, you have something, a bigger purpose. And for us, so we give back 10% of our revenue to those in need. And
Yeah.
so I knew that this business, I mean, wasn't just for me, but it could help a lot of other people. That's the first thing. The second thing is I believe in God, and I believe in God's justice. And sometimes you don't see the justice in this world, you see it like in the hereafter. And these, I mean, not everyone has to share those beliefs, but these are mine, and this is how I went through this. So like, and you know, like, we prayed a lot, we placed our trust in God, and then we started like to really like work super hard to prove that.